Their father made them promise they would never play each other when it mattered. For years, they kept that promise. But when tennis history demanded they meet in the biggest final of their lives, one sister had to betray everything they believed in. September 8, 2001, the U.S. Open Final. Venus and Serena Williams stood on opposite sides of the net, but what the 23,000 spectators didn't know was the devastating conversation that had taken place in their hotel room just 12 hours earlier. A conversation where 15 years of family loyalty was about to be shattered forever. Welcome to the Storybook. Before we dive into the most emotionally brutal match in tennis history, tell me in the comments from which city in the world are you watching today. And if you believe that some victories cost more than any defeat, hit that subscribe button because this story will show you what happens when family meets ambition. This isn't just about tennis. This is about the secret family rule that Richard Williams made his daughters swear to keep when they were children. A rule designed to protect their bond, but that would ultimately become the very thing that threatened to destroy it. By the end of this match, one sister would win her first Grand Slam. The other would lose more than just a tennis title. She would lose the innocence of believing that family always comes first. What you're about to hear is the untold story of the promise that was broken, the tears that were shed, and the choice that changed the Williams family forever. Compton, California, 1985. Venus Williams was 5 years old. Serena was 4. Their father, Richard Williams, watched his daughters hitting tennis balls against the chain-link fence of the public courts, already showing the power and determination that would one day make them legends. But Richard Williams had seen enough of professional sports to know its dark side. He had watched families destroyed by competition, siblings turned into enemies, parents choosing favorites based on success. He was determined that would never happen to his daughters. "Girls," he said one afternoon, gathering Venus and Serena after practice, "I want you to make me a promise. No matter how good you both become, no matter what tournaments you play, you will never, ever compete against each other when it really matters." 5-year-old Venus looked confused. "What do you mean, Daddy?" "I mean that tennis is just a game," Richard explained, his voice serious. "But family is forever. If there's ever a situation where beating your sister means hurting your sister, you walk away. You understand me?" Both girls nodded solemnly, not fully understanding the weight of the promise they were making. "Promise me," Richard insisted. "We promise, Daddy," they said in unison. For the next 16 years, they would keep that promise, even when it cost them opportunities, rankings, and prize money. Even when other players, coaches, and media questioned their decisions. The Williams sisters never played each other when it truly mattered. Until September 8, 2001, when keeping that promise became impossible. By 2001, Venus and Serena Williams had already changed tennis forever. Venus, the older sister, was the defending U.S. Open champion and the established star. Serena, 2 years younger, was the rising force everyone knew would eventually dominate the sport. They had traveled the world together, trained together, supported each other through racism, media scrutiny, and the pressure of being the most famous sisters in sports. When Venus won Wimbledon in 2000, Serena was the first person to congratulate her. When Serena struggled with confidence in early tournaments, Venus was the one who reminded her of her greatness. "We're not just sisters," Venus often said in interviews. "We're best friends. We're each other's biggest supporters." Their relationship was different from typical sibling rivalries. They genuinely celebrated each other's victories, shared practice courts, and even shared clothes and jewelry for tournaments. Tennis journalists called them the most supportive siblings in professional sports. But beneath this perfect facade, a tension was growing. Serena was 19 years old and had yet to win a Grand Slam. Venus, at 21, already had 2. The media was beginning to ask uncomfortable questions. Was Serena good enough to be a champion? Was she always going to be in her sister's shadow? More painfully, some whispered that Serena was holding back against Venus, that she was deliberately losing matches to preserve their father's rule. "I'm tired of people saying I'm not trying my hardest," Serena confided to Venus during a practice session in 2001. "I'm tired of people thinking I don't want to win." "Then prove them wrong," Venus replied, "but not against me." Never against me. It was a promise that was becoming harder to keep. The 2001 US Open started like many others for the Williams sisters. They were seated on opposite sides of the draw, meaning they could only meet in the final. For years, this had been a relief. They could both play their best tennis without the fear of facing each other. But as the tournament progressed, it became clear that fate had other plans. Venus demolished her opponents with the same power and precision that had made her the defending champion. Her serves were untouchable, her movement graceful, her confidence absolute. She hadn't dropped a set in 6 matches. Serena, meanwhile, was playing the tennis of her life. Something had changed in her game, a new intensity that surprised even her sister. She was hitting harder, moving faster, playing with the kind of desperate hunger that only comes from years of being called the other Williams sister. By the time they both reached the semifinals, the tennis world was buzzing with anticipation and dread. Everyone wanted to see the Williams sisters meet in a Grand Slam final. Everyone except Venus and Serena themselves. "We need to talk," Venus said to Serena after her semifinal victory. That night, in their shared hotel suite overlooking Manhattan, the Williams sisters had the conversation that would haunt them both forever. "We can't do this," Venus said, pacing around their hotel room. "We promised Dad. We promised each other." Serena sat on the edge of her bed, still in disbelief that they were 1 match away from facing each other in a Grand Slam final. "But what are we supposed to do? We both won our semifinals. We both deserve to be here. One of us needs to withdraw," Venus said quietly. "Tomorrow morning, before the final, we say it's an injury, illness, something." "Which one?" Serena asked, though they both knew the answer. Venus was the defending champion, the #1 seed, the established star. By every measure of tennis hierarchy, Serena should be the one to step aside. "Me," Serena said, her voice barely above a whisper. But as she said it, something broke inside her. 19 years old, she had worked her entire life to reach a Grand Slam final. She had endured racism, criticism, and constant comparisons to her sister. She had sacrificed dates, friendships, and a normal teenage life for this moment. "I can't do it, Venus," she said, tears streaming down her face. "I can't withdraw. This might be my only chance." Venus felt her heart shatter. She looked at her little sister, the girl she had protected, encouraged, and loved unconditionally, and saw someone she barely recognized, someone willing to break their sacred family rule for a trophy. "What about our promise?" Venus asked. "What about my dreams?" Serena replied. They stayed up until 4 a.m., arguing, crying, and trying to find a solution that didn't exist. By sunrise, they had reached a decision that satisfied no one, but was the only path forward. They would play the final. For the first time in their careers, Venus and Serena Williams would compete against each other when it mattered most. September 8th, 2001. Arthur Ashe Stadium was electric with anticipation. 23,000 spectators and millions watching worldwide were about to witness history. The first Grand Slam final between sisters since 1884. But in the players' tunnel, Venus and Serena Williams barely looked at each other. The warmth that had defined their relationship for 19 years had been replaced by something cold and professional. "May the best player win," Venus said stiffly as they prepared to take the court. "I intend to," Serena replied, her voice harder than Venus had ever heard it. The match began with both sisters playing tentatively, as if neither wanted to be the first to truly compete against the other. But by the third game, Serena's hunger overcame her hesitation. She began hitting with a power and precision that stunned everyone watching, including Venus. This wasn't the little sister who had always deferred to Venus's experience. This was a woman who had been waiting her entire career for this moment. Venus, meanwhile, seemed conflicted. Her shots lacked their usual authority. She was playing not to lose, rather than playing to win. The commentators noticed immediately. "Venus Williams doesn't look like herself out there," John McEnroe observed from the broadcast booth. "She seems almost reluctant." The first set was a masterclass in aggressive tennis from Serena, 6-2. She had never played better against her sister, and Venus had never looked more vulnerable. During the changeover, Venus caught Serena's eye across the net. For a moment, the competitive masks slipped away, and they were just two sisters who loved each other, wondering how they had gotten to this point. But when play resumed, Serena was relentless. She wasn't just playing to win. She was playing to prove that she belonged on this stage, that she wasn't just Venus's little sister, that she was a champion in her own right. At 5-1 in the second set, with Serena serving for the championship, Venus made one last attempt to reclaim the match. She broke Serena's serve with a brilliant cross-court winner that brought the crowd to its feet. For a moment, it seemed like the Venus Williams who had dominated tennis for 2 years was back. She held serve to make it 5-3, then broke Serena again to reach 5-4. Suddenly, the momentum had shifted. Venus was playing with the kind of desperate intensity that champions summon in crucial moments. Serena, feeling the championship slipping away, began to press. At 5-5, with the crowd on its feet and the tension unbearable, Serena faced a choice that would define her career. She could play it safe, extend the match, hope that Venus's newfound aggression would fade, or she could do something that went against every instinct their father had taught them. She could destroy her sister's confidence with the kind of ruthless winner that ends matches and breaks spirits. Serena chose aggression. Her next 4 serves were aces, not just aces, but serves hit with such power and precision that Venus couldn't even get her racket on them. It was a statement that echoed through Arthur Ashe Stadium. Serena Williams was no longer the little sister. She was the predator. 6-4, 6-2. Serena Williams had won her first Grand Slam title, but as she collapsed to the court in victory, the first person she looked for wasn't her parents or her coach. It was Venus. Her sister was standing at the net with tears streaming down her face, but she was smiling. Despite everything, the broken promise, the family tension, the public humiliation of losing to her little sister, Venus was genuinely happy for Serena's achievement. They embraced at the net, and for a moment they were just sisters again. "I am so proud of you," Venus whispered. "I am sorry," Serena whispered back. But both of them knew that something fundamental had changed between them forever. The media called it the changing of the guard. Serena Williams had announced herself as a champion, and Venus Williams had been forced to accept that she was no longer the only Williams sister who mattered. But the real story was happening away from the cameras. For months after the US Open, Venus and Serena struggled to find their rhythm as sisters. The easy companionship that had defined their relationship was replaced by a careful politeness that fooled no one. "It's different now," Venus admitted in a rare, honest interview 6 months later. "We're both champions now, both competitors." The dynamic has changed. Serena, meanwhile, was dealing with her own complicated emotions. She had achieved her dream of winning a Grand Slam, but it had come at the cost of keeping the most important promise of her life. "I don't regret winning," she said, "but I regret how much it hurt her. I regret that it had to be against Venus." Richard Williams, watching his daughters navigate this new reality, realized that his well-intentioned promise had created an impossible situation. By trying to protect their relationship, he had made competition between them feel like betrayal. "I wanted to keep them together," he later reflected, "but maybe trying to keep them from competing made it harder when they finally had to." The sisters would go on to face each other 30 more times in their careers. Serena would win 19 of those matches, becoming the more successful sister by any statistical measure. But they learned to separate their professional competition from their personal relationship. Today, Venus and Serena Williams are considered the greatest sister act in sports history. They revolutionized tennis, inspired millions, and proved that family relationships can survive even the most intense professional rivalry. But their story might have been different if not for that September night in 2001 when they chose ambition over a family promise. "People ask me if I regret playing Venus in that final," Serena said years later. "The answer is complicated. I regret that it hurt our relationship. I regret that it broke a promise to our father. But I don't regret becoming a champion." Venus, characteristically gracious, had a different perspective. Serena deserved to win that match. She deserved to be a champion. Maybe our father's promise was trying to protect something that didn't need protecting. Maybe competition between sisters isn't betrayal. Maybe it's love in a different form. The 2001 US Open final changed both of their lives forever. It transformed Serena from promising player to Grand Slam champion. It forced Venus to accept that greatness doesn't guarantee permanent supremacy. And it taught them both that some promises, no matter how well-intentioned, are impossible to keep when dreams and destiny collide. But perhaps most importantly, it proved that family love can survive even the most devastating professional competition. Venus and Serena Williams didn't just become the greatest tennis sisters in history. They became proof that you can compete with someone and still love them unconditionally. The promise their father made them swear as children was broken that day. But the bond between them, tested by competition and strengthened by mutual respect, proved to be unbreakable. Sometimes the most loving thing you can do for someone is compete with them at your absolute best. Sometimes breaking a promise is the only way to keep what really matters. So now I ask you, have you ever had to compete against someone you love? How did you balance personal ambition with loyalty to family or friends? Share your story in the comments and let us know what city you're watching from. Thank you for watching The Story Gook. If this story of sisterhood, competition, and the complexity of family relationships moved you, subscribe for more stories that explore the human side of greatness. We'll see you in the next story. And until then, remember, sometimes the people who challenge us the most are the ones who love us the most. And sometimes the promises we break lead us to the truths we need to find.